So the current CEO of Electronic Arts, Andrew Wilson, at the BC Tech Summit Tuesday, said the following. If you understand the video game business, EA, the branding is this corporate beast that just wants to take money from them. Well, people play our games. That's not actually what we are trying to do. So basically we have a CEO that has ultimately decided to admit, hey, you know what? There is a bit of a problem within Electronic Arts. We are the corporate beast that is taking your money for granted, taking you for granted. But that's not what we're trying to do. Let me give you some advice, Andrew Wilson, as well as fucking destroy your idiocracy. One of the biggest problems with CEOs, especially when you just look at Electronic Arts within of itself, it seems that the CEOs never actually learn anything from the previous CEO. Be it poor decisions that the previous CEO made, dumb ass shit that the CEO has been quoted saying, so on and such forth. Because the last two, before Anderson Wilson, CEO of Electronic Arts, Peter Moore and John Riccatello, or whatever his fucking name was, alright? It's been a while, alright? Both negative people when it came at least to the iteration of being a CEO, making excuses, making poor decisions. And now Andrew Wilson, current CEO of Electronic Arts, is going to try to change, going to try to not be the corporate dick that Electronic Arts is known for. Let's travel back in time when Peter Moore was the CEO of Electronic Arts. Does anyone remember the Consumerist Awards? Yeah, you know, the poo-poo awards? Yeah, Electronic Arts won it 2 years in a row. Alright? We're talking about the whole spiel with Mass Effect and a variety of other things that took place within that same year. And of course, the DRM-infested launch of SimCity. How did the current CEO respond at the time, Peter Moore, to winning the poo-poo award? This is the same poll that last year judged us as worse than companies responsible for the biggest oil spill in history. Because somehow it makes more sense to derail the subject rather than to actually talk to the people that made Electronic Arts what it is. The gamers, your consumers. It's easier to derail the subject and, like, you know what, there's more important things out there than what we did. Well, yes, Peter Moore. Yes, Andrew Wilson. There are more important things out there. There's more important things in the realm of video games in general, but that does not stop the media from trying to make money off of pointless bullshit. And at the end of the day, the Consumerist Worst Company in America award is designed to let the CEO, the company in general, that, hey, your consumer base has these problems, these issues with what you have done this year. How are you going to fix it? How are you going to ease their mind? What are you going to do to make sure that you don't lose them as a consumer? The complaints against us last year were our support for SOPA and that they didn't like the ending to Mass Effect 3. Because there's nothing better than a CEO giving misinformation, not giving all of the information, and just trying to make the people that voted Electronic Arts the worst company in America, the actual people that play their games, as if somehow they're the bad guy. They're just a bunch of kids acting like kids, throwing a tantrum. I'll be the first to admit that we've made plenty of mistakes. These include server shutdowns, too early games that didn't meet expectations, missteps on new pricing models, and most recently, severely fumbling the launch of SimCity. We owe gamers better performance than this. What you owed, Peter Moore, what you owed gamers, was not making excuses for the faults of Electronic Arts as a whole, or maybe even for the poor decisions that you yourself made while you were CEO of Electronic Arts. They deserved more than you trying to sidestep and sidetrack and make excuses. Many continue to claim the always-on function in SimCity is a DRM scheme. It's not. People still want to argue about it. We can't be any clearer. It's not, period. We've seen mailing lists that direct people to vote for EA because they disagree with the choice of the cover athlete on Madden NFL. Because it's easier to tell a lie. It's easier to derail the subject than to admit to the faults. The article that I'm reading these quotes from is in the description box below, which gives a full explanation from the writer that wrote the article, doing a far better rhetorical counterclaim or argument to what is ultimately being claimed by Moore. I'm not going over what they're saying because that's not the purpose of this video. In the past year, we have received thousands of emails and postcards protesting against EA for allowing players to create LGBT characters in our games. This week, we're seeing posts on conservative websites urging people to protest our LGBT policy by voting EA the worst company in America. Once again, Electronic Arts is voted the worst company in America 2 years in a row. The current CEO at that time, Peter Moore, made excuse after excuse after excuse, tried to derail the subject at hand, tried to somehow make it look as if Electronic Arts was not the bad guy, or that maybe he himself was not the bad guy. You know, Andrew Wilson, there used to be a moment in time when people actually respected Electronic Arts. I mean, it still is a powerhouse, a negative powerhouse. That's how gamers see it, a negative powerhouse. But it used to be a positive powerhouse. It used to be a powerhouse in such a way that when gamers brought up games developed or even published by Electronic Arts, they weren't met with hesitation, disdain, hate. They were met with awe, inspiration, joy. You want to sit here and you want to admit that there is a problem within your company, that Electronic Arts is a corporate beast that takes money while people simply play their games. But you're going to try not to do that. Why don't you do the very people that made Electronic Arts what it is today? Instead of trying, why don't you actually do it? All you have to do is look at the two previous CEOs that came before you. It isn't that hard to understand. You look at the CEOs before you. What mistakes did they make? What was the response of gamers to some of the decisions that they made? What was the response of consumers, our customers that have been with us from possibly the beginning when Electronic Arts was first created, to maybe even newer customers? What was their concerns that the previous CEOs just simply rejected, ignored, fluffed over? It isn't that hard to learn not only from your own mistakes, but to learn from the mistakes of people that have come before you. That's the whole point of why they teach history in class. It's boring as shit, but the idea behind it is to teach a newer generation about the mistakes that the previous generation made. That same ideology even fits into a business, a corporate business. The poor decisions and the bad comments made from previous CEOs should be looked at with all seriousness when a new CEO takes over, so that they don't repeat the same mistakes. So if you honestly want electronic arts to not be seen as a corporate beast, as a corporate dick, don't try. Do. Because I think a lot of gamers are at that point where electronic arts needs to nut up, or they just need to shut up. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video in some fashion or form. And remember, gamers, if you're not voicing your thoughts and concerns about the bullshit in gaming, about the bullshit that CEOs spit out their mouth on their keyboards, the excuses that they make for their company, or the excuses they make for their own poor business decisions, you just might be a part of the motherfucking problem.